This is just going to be a super quick one because something came up with like a couple of my coaching students actually, and where as soon as I showed them, they were like, nah, this is changing the game for me. This is super helpful because sometimes I'll be doing something, I don't explain it, and I don't even realize that you guys would benefit from this information. So let me show you how I like to set up sends and returns for my tracks. Let's get into it. So I'm just going to build up a quick chord progression, right? As you can see, I've got this song started. I'm going to add maybe some like a drum groove as well. Here we go, let's do it. I'm going to add something else on top of that so that we can kind of build out from that. Sweet. So we'll rock with that for now. I'll just add a little bit of filtering so we don't have like, our stuff doesn't sound quite as clashy. So let me put it to you like this. Whenever you see me typically processing something, the first thing I'm doing is dragging it straight onto the track, right? And this is what we would call adding it like an insert, right? So we put the track on, we add our particular sound, and instantly we can hear that effect. If I was to add a reverb as well, we add on the reverb. And this is fine. This is pretty cool. This is a very straightforward way to get your track sounding a particular way with the effects. But I want you to notice something with the dry wet. So the dry refers to the original sound source and the wet refers to the sound source with this effect on it, right? So I'm going to solo the key so you can hear this. So as I try and increase the reverb and try and get more reverb out of it, turning up that dry wet decreases the amount of the original sound source, right? So this is how a lot of people will be using their reverbs. This is how a lot of people will be using their delays, etc., etc., etc. But there's a next level to the game, okay? And this is where the sends and the returns come in. So you see me do this sometimes with the drums, with the keys, with the vocals. With the vocals, it's a whole game changer, right? But let me show you what it would look like. Ableton has got this track set up on what's called a return track. Notice the dry wet is already at 100%. And what happens is, when I send over here, I'm going to switch to this view so that we can see the send section, as you can see over here. If I send some of that signal over, it's going to split that audio and send some of the keys to this track, okay? So if I take off this reverb, if I solo this, you can hear the keys on this track now, right? What does that mean? That means we can add effects to this and process the keys alongside the original signal. Fancy words, let me show you what this means in practice. I'm going to turn on the reverb and make it so that it's 100%, so that everything that comes through is only wet signal. This is something like a very good common practice when you're using sends and returns. You want your returns to have 100% of the effect, because then you're not duplicating the sound. So we have our original here, our original insert. And look, now I can process the reverb keys and the original keys independently of each other. I can turn look, now I've just got the reverb keys. Okay, sweet. You get that. Now you're thinking, Raya, that's all cool and stuff, but when is this actually useful? Okay, so first of all, when you've got multiple layers of your track, if you want things to sound cohesive, it's helpful to process them the same way, right? So I've got a reverb on here. I put my keys on. If I add some type of lead, sexy smooth sine lead, I don't even know what that is. Oh, that is sexy. Okay, so we've got that sound, it's dry. I want to add reverb, but I don't want it to have one reverb over here, one reverb over there, and all different settings and parameters that are going to make our mix sound busy, cluttered, and over dramatic, right? All I need to do is send this signal to the same reverb track, just like so. Notice how they're both called A. That's referring to this. So now if I listen to it, what am I going to get? I'm going to get the keys and the lead signal. Let's turn off the reverb and solo just this. So now if we listen to the reverb version of that, we can hear the keys and the lead are being processed by the same reverb. So powerful, because now they're both getting a reverb effect. They're both having that long, smooth tail, but they're not being cluttered up with several different reverbs all going around sounding crazy. You've just got one particular sound. How crazy is that? You see, normally I'd be telling people, oh, you don't want 16 long reverbs and different sounds with all these crazy reverbs going around. But in this particular case, because we've only used the one with the exact same parameters, our brains can process and be like, oh, it's just in that same big space. Okay, that's one particular way to use it. Let me show you another way to use it. And this is when we get into some really cool mixing stuff, right? So if I was to process these drums, right? And say I wanted to just have some type of crazy, saturated, crunchy, something insane. Let's go knock, right? Okay, I've dialed all those up to the max. First thing someone would tell me is, that sounds awful. I've just crushed all my transients. I've just made it sound burpy and flabby, etc, etc, etc. Let me show you how we can add that sauce, that extra crispiness and that crunch to our drums without compromising on the original sound. It's going to be the exact same way. So I'm going to create a return track, another one. Call this drum saturation, right? Boom. Take that knock that I made and put it on here instead, okay? Notice we're not going to hear anything yet. Watch what happens when I start to push some of my original drum signal into that drum saturation channel. So now we get to have the best of both worlds, right? We get to have that grit, that punch, that in-your-faceness that I got from the clip in the drums, whilst also having the transients that come from having our original signal. So powerful in a way that we couldn't do it by just slapping something on the insert, but being able to balance both. And you could imagine, you could go crazy with this idea, right? Like, so I've got a reverb and a delay set up, but I could have a chorus. I'll show you something that I really like to do with my vocals, right? I don't wanna I've got that original signal, and maybe I process it a certain kind of way, right? I add my RVox to get some compression. I add an EQ to take out some of the lows, some of the parts I don't like. Okay, so, but we want to add our fancy effects, but we don't want our fancy effects to take away from the actual main vocal that's in our face, right? So what are we doing? How are we doing this? Let me show you. Let me show you some of my favorite stuff. When I mix, I might have like 12 of these with just little bits of this, a little bit of that, and it will look like this. So I'm going to create a return track. Maybe I'll add a wider. One of my favorite widers to achieve this is micro shift. Bring it on. And all I'm going to do is exactly the same thing. Push some of my sound into micro shift. I don't want to have to own you. I don't want to have to own you. So you see micro shift puts it on the sides, right? Now I can control how much sides I want versus the one that's down the middle. I don't want to have to own you. I don't want to have to own you. If you've been wondering how some people achieve that thick sound without recording multiple takes, this right here is it. Let's keep going. Something else I like to add. I like to add a little bit of delay, but not just any delay. Something that's called slapback delay, right? I'm loving this right now for my vocals. Let's go J37. And you see in the J37 it actually has the option. It's saying, are you putting it directly on the track or are you doing a sends and return thing? When I click sends and return, it's going to make sure that the only thing that comes out of this is the effect and none of the original. I don't wanna have to own you. You're thinking, right, that's crazy. But let me show you one of the craziest hacks. Bring down the time on one of these. I don't wanna have to own you. Come on, tell me that's not the coolest thing you ain't ever heard. And I also want you to note one other thing. This will be the last thing I'll say. But if you realize if we wanted to put things on as inserts, right, and we tweak the dry wets instead, if everything was on an insert, then all of the effects would be adding up together. I would have my vocal that would have the micro shift on it, and then the micro shift would be running into the slapback. And say I put a reverb on, suddenly the slapback is going into the reverb, they're going one into the other, and you end up with a sound that can be not quite what you wanted. With this, the effects are tracks in themselves. So you could pick how much micro shift you like, you can pick how much slapback you like, tweak the sound, subtly change things, and honestly, it's so important. It's such an incredible part of my workflow. For production, definitely. When you get to mixing, oh my days, you can't do nothing without it, is what I found. If you guys are interested in seeing the mixing side of things and like maybe digging into more of how I mix my tracks and stuff using this stuff, but like with more context around it, let me know. I'll be happy to do that as well. I've got links down to the description for like how I learnt R&B, and I think the best way to learn R&B, so check that out. That is a free email course where I'll just be hitting you up for I think 12 days, just giving you the maddest gems on how to learn R&B, how to learn music production in general. And as always, if you guys are interested in coaching, you know where to find me. I've got 3 slots left, so check that out. That'll be linked in the description as well. I hope you found this quick tutorial helpful. If you want more of these, just let me know in the links below. I love you guys. You're the absolute best. I'm gonna catch you in the next one. But for now, peace out.